A social activist from Boston turned green pioneer, Yosef Abramowitz's vision is to harness the sun's energy.
These deserts are a source of inspiration throughout history, and it's what has inspired, I think, our really mission to bring solar power to Israel and to the world.
The sun's journey over this valley follows the path the Bible says the Jewish people wandered in exile. Today, it glistens with more than 16,000 solar panels, generating 9 million kilowatt hours of solar energy per year. The unlikely home to the $150 million project? A kibbutz, where Abramowitz landed 30 years ago as a young volunteer. Even then, Kibbutz Keturah was known for its environmental innovation. Keturah leases the land to Arava in return for a share in the company. The kibbutz members work on the field, including Arava chairman Hoffman, who makes no personal profit.
When you live on a kibbutz, and that's the basic principle, that the kibbutz will take care of your needs, your family's needs, then it's obviously the thing to do is to give your salary to the kibbutz.
Around the kibbutz, they call Yosef Captain Sunshine. Other entrepreneurs come from around the world to see what's happening here. Yosef says he's on a mission to make money with solar energy while helping others save the planet.
If we can do it, anybody can do it. And how do we become a catalyst to work with other countries, especially poor countries?
One simple idea, one lone pioneer capturing the sun's promise, casting a shadow over the future that could only be brighter. Elise Labit, CNN, Keturah, Israel.
Thank you. So you heard I used to be a Jewish educator and a human rights activist, and now I'm a solar entrepreneur. As a Jewish educator, what I was always concerned about is that our energies are kind of being dissipated, and that we're not all rowing in the same direction. And I felt a creeping parochialism in Jewish life that I thought was actually dangerous. And I always advocated that we should get back to basics. And basics to me is a mission statement. Now certainly at Sinai we were given a mission statement to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, but I didn't feel that works for our generation. Like, what does that actually mean? And so I thought long and hard, and I came up with a mission statement that works for me and is completely convoluted and nobody gets it. But let's at least start with that. So the mission of the Jewish people is to be an ongoing, distinctive catalyst for the advancement and evolution of morality and civilization. So ongoing is because I'm not a Messianist, even though I was the last with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and therefore I think it's a ongoing generational challenge. Distinctive because I think we have very unique values, and those values that we share with others need to be mined better. We need to be moral archaeologists to pull out how we understand the world, and I do think it's fundamentally different. Even just think of the word charity and tzedakah, right? And our tzedakah comes from a sense of justice, not from a sense of charity. And to be a catalyst for the advancement and evolution of morality and civilization, because I just heard we're really small people. Where I was sitting, Jonathan, I could not see that red line. So all we can be is catalytic. Where I come from, I believe that Israel must be, should be, has to be a world leader when it comes to renewable energy, has to be a world leader when it comes to food, and has to be a world leader when it comes to water. And all these things are interlinked. If you think about the over 1 billion people who don't have access to clean water, and then there's a lot more that don't have it reliably, you think of over 1 billion people, going back to the numbers, who are hungry or have food insecurity, even more than that. And when you think about the 1.6 billion who don't have access to any electricity, and then a lot more with intermittentness, you realize that the problems of the world are huge, and yet energy, food, and water are all intrinsically interconnected. And so what we do in Israel, I find, can have a catalytic effect worldwide. And so 2/3 of our greenhouse gas emissions come from power plants. We burn things. 99% of Israel's energy comes from burning fossil fuels. And 1/3 of our greenhouse gas emissions, which of course increase global warming and climate change, comes from transportation. So we hope to take out the coal, gas, and diesel plants in Israel with renewable energy. And in Israel, we're trying to get off the ground an electric car network. So with these two things combined, we can actually get Israel to a place, it's an uphill battle, to 100% renewable with no carbon footprint. It would be transformative, and yet it wouldn't. We're such a small country. Like less than 1% of all greenhouse gas emissions comes from Israel. So it won't work. It won't do a thing unless we look as Israel as our collective world Jewish platform, unless we're able to pilot for the whole world, how do you take a carbon-based economy and transform it into one that is based on renewables? And so that gets interesting. That gets me excited. But why is it important? It's important because this week's Torah portion is Parshat Noach. So Noah and the Ark, familiar story. Now, Noah, I'm used to thinking about in that moment in time, not only as the righteous in his generation, but as the luckiest guy on the planet, right? But not for the reason you're thinking about. He's the luckiest guy on the planet because he had 120 years to warn humanity to change our evil ways, or else the waters are going to rise and all life is going to be wiped out. That's as if we had 120 years. That means we would have started in 1892 to warn about the effects of climate change and global warming. He actually got a chance to plant the trees that later he was going to cut down to form the ark. So how many years do we have left until global warming and climate change is irreversible? Anybody? Yeah?
We've got I'd say about 4 years, maybe even less.
So 5, give or take. So, and let me explain why 4 or 5 years. I mean, we wish we had 120 years, don't we? But we only have 4 or 5 years. So this is pretty important. This is actually really urgent. There's probably nothing more urgent that we as a people can do than figure this out. So remember this number, 350. The Earth is in balance when you have 350 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We can handle it. We can handle it. And yet today, what are we at? 392 parts per million. Now what happens is, in 5 years' time, at this pace, global warming becomes irreversible. Irreversible. So here's some small questions and challenges. How do we being the world, and we being little Jewish people, how do we stop the melting of the polar ice caps? How do we being the world and the Jewish people, how do we stop the rising waters of the sea? How do we being the world and the Jewish people, stop the extinction of thousands of species of animals? You hear the echoes of Noah, don't you? How do we being the world and the Jewish people, stop the increase, which we're all experiencing, in extreme weather storms? And how do we being the world and we being the little Jewish people, stop the long-term droughts that are threatening today the lives of millions and millions of people? The answer, you will be disappointed to know, is gematria. Mystical numerology of the Jewish people. So back to our gematria. You ready? 350. That's our goal. So for those of you who are Kabbalah buffs or mathematicians, 350 translates into Yavi Sof Olam, meaning the world, it will bring the end to the world. Spell it out. Check it out. It also is the word Keren, a ray of light. Interesting. Two different, completely different interpretations. So whichever way it's going to go, it's actually up to us. But if only Israel, or if only the Jewish people do this, The end is near. The waters will rise when we come to. So next week in Tel Aviv, we're going to announce the creation of a global solar energy company based in Jerusalem. Ki mitzion tetzeh ora. From Jerusalem will shine forth a new light that's only going to work in developing countries. Now, 85% of Africa doesn't even have power, right? Hence the generator, right? And the 15% that do have, a lot of it is on burning diesel power, which is expensive and really dirty and will bring the end of the world, essentially. So I think our collective goal should be to end the addiction to burning fossil fuels by providing green energy to underserved populations as a fundamental human right. Why is it a human right? Because isn't education a human right? Isn't healthcare a human right? Isn't a secure job a human right? Isn't all the things the promise of development supposed to enhance human life? And you can't do it without power. In addition to my Give More, I also have a Agahoz Shalom Youth Village, which is in Rwanda. In Rwanda, they look to the Jewish people. They're 18 years after their genocide, and they look to the Jewish people and to Israel as a model of coming out of darkness and into light. And we're building for a youth orphan village there, a solar field. It'll be the first solar field in East Africa, and it'll provide 10% of Rwanda's energy. We work in a West African country, and hopefully soon we'll announce a 100 megawatt field. And I said to my partner, who we love and trust, and he loves us too much. I said, Dr. Joe, what's going on here? And he goes, well, Golda Meir sent to the industry minister a long time ago to our house, Mayor Dizengoff from Tel Aviv, to help us. And my father was a minister, and I remember that. And I want to work with Israel. And last is the Galapagos Islands. The Galapagos, which is really going back to Noah, right? It's a unique nature reserve. It's a UNESCO site, and they have all sorts of kinds of species of animals that don't exist anywhere. But it's all powered on diesel, and here you have a diesel spill. So we're going to turn this old garbage dump into a solar field and get the Galapagos off of diesel. And I think that way we're going to change the world. Isaiah is the Haftorah for Noah, and he's really our prophet par excellence. And he wants us to feed the hungry and to take in the orphans. And so I think we are commanded that there should be food for all. We are commanded there should be water for all. We are commanded to make sure there's families for all, right? Which means you need green energy for all. So for me, the mission statement has evolved. And hopefully together we can be a renewable light unto the nations. Thank you. Thank you.